First for, sorry, the thing just said recording. It'll be better streaming for people in all islands, different countries throughout the Caribbean. And also, they'll be having the physically disabled children, youth competing in the games as well this year. It'll be a lively event. He encouraged everybody to attend, to at least show up to the games. So it should be a family-oriented games, a lot of prize giveaways. It was pretty interesting. It's my first time attending a Rotary Club meeting. They were talking about having people, members to work at the games, assist in different categories. Overall, it was a nice atmosphere.
Okay, and you introduced yourself?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
Okay, excellent,
I
excellent.
saw a
So,
few familiar faces from various places throughout life who I encountered in the past. It was somewhere where I would like to attend more meetings.
okay, excellent, excellent, very good. Go out there, network, get to know the movers and shakers, and you become the next movers and shakers. I want to be able to go right down and go to Nathan's group or go to Elkin's group or go to Vernie's group. So very good. Soon y'all will be the presidents and in those positions. So I look forward to it in a few years. So excellent, excellent, very good.
Thank you.
Very good. Okay, anybody with the newspaper? No, no more newspaper. Everybody get their 5%. Okay, good.
Name is Bullard.
Go ahead, Ferguson.
I read a very disturbing story in the newspaper today. Well,
Okay.
actually, I think there's something that transpired yesterday in the House of Assembly, where the Prime Minister and the leader of the opposition were having some big powwow about this hedge fund and this $150 million that BPL owes their fuel supplier. Now, my problem with this is they just pointing fingers and, no, you left the bill and you didn't do this and you didn't do that. And they're doing all this, right? But my light bill's still going up. And from what I understand, there's going to be another increase, I think, in April, March, first quarter, because they're doing it quarterly. So what's happening is BVL is not going to pay this bill. This bill is going to be passed on to us, the consumer.
Always.
It's just one other thing that's wrong with this country. So, you know, that I don't know, you encourage us to read the business section, but the business section is depressing me more than the crime section now, Ms. Bullard.
Yeah, but see, the thing about it is we need to call out. And I just had this, I was buying lunch today and I saw a friend who I hadn't seen for years. And we were talking about the same thing. And back to my story, we need lobbyists. And so he said, well, I follow Lincoln Payne. I said, listen, we need stability. We need lobbyists who will stay on the lobbying side. You can't be the government in 6 months because then we have to call somebody now to hold your feet to the fire. So we have to organize it. And in America, we need to follow, we just copy. So we need to follow what happens in London, and we need to follow what happens in the United States. And then we need to hire our media. We don't need no Clint Watson. We're being here from Clint for the year and most of last year. And Clint used to be on investigative press every week. Okay, he gone silent. So no, we need people. Yeah, but still, and they hire so many other. You must have integrity, even if you was the press secretary. We encourage that appointment because we said, Clint is gonna go there and say, but no, you have to answer this question. And no, because he has done some investigative press. Who would have known that Clint just went silent? Give him a paycheck and so I'm highly disappointed. So we need to establish a lobbying group, and you can't be the prime minister in 6 months. Okay? No. We need fact checkers, we need media, and we need investigative press. And that way, when they point the fingers, the next day, the newspaper don't have to print. What did the headline say? Brave switches tone. No, we'll have facts that this happened and this how it happened, and because there was a pointing finger between the Minister of Works and Brave initially, and how could Alfred say he didn't know? I mean, come on, this ridiculous. It's ridiculous. You are the minister, like you should be embarrassed to say you don't know. Yeah, so yeah, that's what we need. So keep educating yourself, keep reading, and let's document these issues and do something about it. Okay, because they can still be, by the time is we
Yes,
fully trained and we get in position, they can still be there waiting for us. Right? So at least we'll have all the information. Okay, so very good. So keep informed. Okay, so very, very good, guys. I just want to say congratulations. We all made it. We are still here. This is the last class out of the book. So the last 2 chapters, and by now y'all should have read chapters 8 and 7 and 8. And we can just have this good discussion, and we can just ask questions about it. But of course, Miss Bullet will do a little overview, and I have a little slideshow that I guess persons can read if they want to. Yeah, and that's it. And so you've made it, and you should feel proud that you made it all the way to the end. And by now you should have made the decision as to whether or not you're going to go on to intermediate that starts on February 28th. It's the end of the month. So if you are, go call Miss Dean and register for
correction, it's the 25th, Miss Bullet.
Oh, the 25th. Yeah, correct. Yeah.
4 days
Sometime this month.
after finals.
Yeah, so call Miss Dean and definitely don't leave the final without registering if you plan to go on. But if compliance isn't for you, that's fine, but find what you're passionate about and keep like learning, become expert in whether it's credit or HR or finance, whatever you choose. Join the forums, be educated, find out who the associations are and follow them, and just make sure that you learn and get in the good positions, because we are all future leaders. And so we want to educate ourselves, and we want to have that strong network as we climb up the ladder. Okay, so Bernice, you have a question?
Hi, good night, class. We finished with newspapers, Miss Bullet.
No, if you have a newspaper, you could go ahead.
Well, okay, okay. AG says FTX owes Bahamas some real property tax. So it appears as though, well, we knew they bought some big properties, right?
Correct.
Reading the article, he's basically saying that the government didn't apply to be listed as creditors in the FTX chapter
But
11.
4 or 5 government agencies were listed.
Right, like the
Ministry of Finance, the Attorney
Works,
General
Utilities.
Office.
Attorney General, that's right.
Mhm.
But so how would we get our money though? I'm just curious, like
How could they not list us?
no, what I mean to say, like specifically, I may be wrong. Maybe I don't understand, like public treasury, like or inland revenue, like should they have actually put in like as the other ministries did?
Well, it's common that they allow the very wealthy to owe or pay in stages or what have you. And why he bought so many properties is if you spend 750,000, you get a work permit. So I guess he wanted that amount of work permits. So it's customary. The legal work probably isn't finished, but the Bahamas government, I don't know what the US government is going to do, but I believe that the Bahamas government will just repossess that, and so they will get their real property tax. I don't know if the US can come in and claim that. So what they're doing is, I think when it's one state or one country, it's chapter 13, and when it's more than one, it's chapter 15. So they do in chapter 15, and it's a lot of money. It's $2 billion that we're talking about. And so a lot of people are just gonna have to write off, like Margarita bill put in for 55,000. They have to write that off, because a lot of people lost their money. So because the property is here, and I don't think the legal work was finished, whatever money I think the Securities Commission holding or whatever, if the US government don't take that, then we might get that. But the property was never, I don't think it was finalized. I think they
Wow,
were
okay.
just in the convey, in the legal work section, part of it. That's why the tax wouldn't have been paid. Because the
Oh,
tax
okay.
should be paid at the point when the seller is paid.
Right.
But in the end, they ain't gonna own the property, so either the government or the US government go own the property to be able to pay back those people who lost their money. One way
Okay.
or the next, yeah, because I think what FTX, what his problem is that he messed with people, rich people money. If it was poor people like us, we can't afford these lawyers. We'll wait for years and then can't pay the lawyer, and then the case will go sour. But you have people, billionaires, millionaires, who have lawyer, whole legal team, who will fight this until they get some money. Okay, I forget what the guy's name is. Who is
Brady,
Tom Brady, and what's the guy who is through the venture capitalist? Who's do Shark Tank?
Mark Cuban, or
Yeah, not Mark Cuban, the next one.
I forgot his name, the ball
Yeah,
head.
yeah, the ball head one. He say his lawyers are gonna fight this until he gets his money back. He's not letting it go. So when you have rich people like that willing to invest millions of dollars to get their billion back, yeah, that's where he went wrong.
Mm.
Yeah, but again, most of us, we watch Insider Job already, right?
Yeah.
And we see what happens, right, Nathan? So yeah,
You see how the
he
movie
was
goes.
basically trained to do this.
Yeah, you see his family, he paid both political parties already in the States, the Republicans and the Democrats, so.
Yep. They said, I saw an article this week that said they're asking the politicians to pay back. It was $93 million in total that he donated. So they're asking for that back. Well, good luck with that.
All that money gone.
Yeah. Speak to Bishop and go on.
But
Okay.
see, Ms. Bullard,
Everything?
all that is, he was placing the money, he gave the money away like charitable donations. And
Yeah.
all of that was criminal. But the
Okay,
good
but
thing
he
is,
knew it was criminal and he knew he would need these people. Hence, he is out on bail. And
Robin,
his bail is 24 million, and the house that they're holding is only worth 200,000 or 300,000. But he home and he flew home first class.
but see, and the thing is, I think the sales for the properties in the Bahamas was closed. Because remember now, when the international journalists came and they did their digging, they were able to get conveyances for these properties where they were conveyed to him. So
Then the
what I
US
don't get
government-
is, if the sale was closed, how come the government didn't get the real property tax? Because when I
Yes.
bought my property, they got that
That
up
has to come out first. Yeah. So
Yeah.
whoever these same lawyers, remember now, oh Lord, what's the name of the lawyer? Lennox Patton, the guy from Lennox Patton sits on the board of the Securities Commission. And he also was the person who did the legal work for all these properties. And now he is the liquidator. So, hello, they can fix it. They can fix it. Now remember, if the property is in his name, and that's why you get a company when you're doing criminality. It's a FTX went bankrupt. Sam Bankman-Fried did not go bankrupt, and he is still going to be a billionaire when all this ends. Okay, so that's FTX. So I think 2 of the properties are in his parents' name, so they safe. The government just need to go after his parents to pay that real property tax, and anything in his
He
personal
bought
name.
it in and put it in their name.
Right. So they don't have nothing to do with that.
But
I
you
mean, we
had-
know
that's the
that they
key.
use the people's money to do it, but yeah, that's why you open a company. Remember now, Donald Trump has gone bankrupt 13 times. 13. Is Donald Trump broke?
No.
Nope, because they put it in these little fictitious companies that don't hold nothing. You lose 1 or 2 houses and that's it. So they know they're businessmen. They know how to.
That's what 90 did. 90 did the
Yeah.
same thing. He put a
Okay.
lot of stuff in his family name and they still went after it and they seized it.
Okay, but that's because they changed the law. They changed the law, and that's a good point that you brought up, because with the freezing order and the restraint order, it says, and then unexplained wealth, it tells you, just like Sean Isaacs and 90 them back in the day, if it in your mommy and your son and your girlfriend name, and they cannot say that I worked at Royal Bank of Canada, here's my salary, here's how I paid for it. If you cannot explain your wealth, then we will repossess it as well. And that's the non-conviction based civil forfeiture. Okay, so they had recently changed the law to include that, but before you was able to get away with that if it was in your mommy, sister, whatever. So, right, Trinette, if Sam Bankman-Fried parents cannot say these two properties are valued, let's say 5 million. If they can't prove that they had 5 million to invest in the Bahamas, then under the unexplained wealth, it could be repossessed. But then again, like I say, we're doing chapter 15 in the United States. Okay, and this is why there was a fight for where the case would be held, because of course, every jurisdiction is gonna look out for their people, right? So definitely the US persons are gonna get paid, and that's probably it. That's it. Yeah, they may say, well, Bahamas do whatever and try to get the money that your country lost, you know, because like I say, the Ministry of Finance, the Attorney General Office, the Ministry of Works, like, what do you owe the Ministry of Works? You know, so yeah.
You got building permits for the vacant site?
Yeah, but how much a building permit cost? How much
Plenty
that
money
they-
when you.
Oh,
Anyway.
okay. Yeah. Okay, so chapter 7. It says, under the Proceeds of Crime Act, the legislation sets out several court orders. Conviction-based confiscation, which means criminal confiscation or forfeiture. Non-conviction-based civil forfeiture, which means even if you are not charged and you cannot prove how you acquired this BMW, we could repossess it. Unexplained wealth orders, and then investigative orders, which include like production orders, disclosure orders. Okay, so there are 4 types of orders that are set out in POCA. We remember POCA, the Proceeds of Crime Act, that tells us the various penalties once you commit these crimes. We all familiar? Yes,
Yes,
no,
ma'am.
maybe so? Okay. All right. Trinetta and Nathan, you all have questions? You all answer up or no? No? Okay. So conviction-based confiscation, they have a restraint order. And so I have a little, to make this easier, I guess, remember I said, like, you need a lawyer, because this law talks about inter alia. It uses Latin words, it speaks on instrumentalities, and it's not easy to understand. Not only that, there are many amendments to the law. So you may say, oh, this is the law of 218, but if there are amendments, then the lawyer has to go and do research to read what the amendments state. Okay, so let's get some volunteers to read each of these. So the first one is a restraint order. Sorry,
I'll read
go ahead, it's on the screen.
restraint order to SS 24 to 25, section 24 to 25. The court can make an order even where the person has not been convicted of an offense that A, he committed an offense and is under an investigation or has been charged. B, he has an interest in the property and the property can be subject to an application. C, that the property cannot be disposed of, that it can be seized or a receiver can manage it. A receiver has very wide powers in dealing with the subject property, including to sell it, but the court can make orders to guide the receiver. Within 2 days after a restraint order is made, the enforcement authority should give notice to affected persons.
Okay, and these questions on the final exam comes in essay form. It normally asks you to compare and contrast 2 types of orders, or it'll ask you of 2 popular cases or 3 popular cases. And so after we go through the orders, we will look at some cases. Now, what I want you to know is when you go to Google and you try and find out, is this a restraint order? Is this a unexplained wealth? Our media is not good at saying this is a restraint or this is a production order or they say when it's unexplained wealth, but they don't normally list. So it may be hard. You may have to use like a US case if you're not clear. Now, during my time, in compliance, what the bank usually receives is a disclosure order, which means you must come in and testify or give evidence, and a production order. So what happens is once you file an STR, a suspicious transaction report with the FIU, they ask you to produce documents. And so they'll send you a letter and they say, we want you to produce Renee's KYC. We will need you to produce the transaction where the shade transferred 17,000 on November 17th. So that's a production order. Or sometimes they have a tip where you did not send in an STR, but the person probably was arrested in another country. Or they are just investigating the person, so they will send that production order to you as the compliance officer. Okay? So those are the two that you will see in your financial institution. Okay, let's go down to 41, freezing order.
Do you want me to continue or someone else?
Yeah, you could. And then if
Okay.
somebody else wants to volunteer, they can. Mhm.
Okay, property freezing orders, section 52. The enforcement authority can apply to the court for a property freezing order to preserve the property that is suspected to be the proceeds of crime. The application is made by affidavit in a private hearing and without giving the other party notice. If the court makes a property freezing order, any person with an interest in that property must be given notice of the order within 7 days.
Okay, so that's property freezing. Unexplained wealth, let's go down. And again, here is the Latin word, the inter alia word, which means one example out of many possibilities. And again, it's a Latin term that is used in law. And if you're not a lawyer, you won't be familiar, or you may be familiar. Okay, go ahead, unexplained wealth.
Unexplained wealth order, section 75 to 76. This applies to inter alia the following: a politically exposed person, a public office holder, a person convicted of a crime punishable by imprisonment, a person who receives property or gifts from criminal activities, persons who have been charged with crimes such as bribery, extortion, or misconduct in public office, falsification of accounts, stealing by reason of service or employment, money laundering, fraud, drugs, human and firearms trafficking, Enforcement authority may apply to a court requiring the person to file a declaration of their assets. The enforcement authority's application must have an affidavit which identifies the person, states the suspicion that the person's total wealth exceeds the value of their legitimately obtained wealth, and identifies the property that is believed to be illegally obtained. The court may make a preliminary unexplained wealth order and require the affected person to appear and explain why the court should not make the order absolute.
Okay, so can any of us tell me of a case of unexplained wealth? Do we know?
Ms. Bullard, can we look at the situation with that was Shane Gibson and Anna Nicole?
Well, I don't know. Shane was in charge with Anna Nicole. What he was charged with?
No, I mean it with that strange. Well, I'm looking at that part aspect of it.
Anna Nicole married that guy, and he left that money. So why? What was strange about that?
Well, I mean,
that was more of him being inappropriate with Anna Nicole. Laying on her lap, you know what I mean?
No,
That wasn't so much about the money. I mean, he was perhaps doing it for the money, but what came out in the news was she married this man who was what, 90, and he was going to leave her these billions of dollars. Right?
Did she really get the money though?
Sorry?
Did she really get the money? Because you realize.
No, the son fought her, but then the son ended up dying. And then the money was just locked up in an estate, you know, because she had Donnie Lynn. I don't know where the money is now.
Do we all find a little suspicious that the son ended up dying?
No, but they were so heavy on drugs. You know, when the report came out, they said that she had I can't even remember the drug, methamphetamine or something like that she was taking as a prescription. And on the bottle, the side effects were listed, and one of the side effects was death. So her son was heavily on drugs and she was heavily on drugs. And would you take a medication that say may cause death? Would you do that?
Most prescription drugs, you know.
No, but it need not say may cause death. I mean, I listen to the TV now and they say a lot of stuff, but that was the first time I see something that say may cause death and you could take it.
Why
That
would
was
a doctor
scary.
even give you that?
That was scary. Okay, so let's look at this 3 charged in 1.2 money laundering scheme. Of course, this case is very popular. This is Elmer Chase Campbell, former cabinet minister, her son, Che Chase, or I think his name, and Damalis Curry. Now, when they defrauded the Ministry of Tourism, before they defrauded the Ministry of Tourism, Che was already out on bail for defrauding BPL, and Damalis was already caught up in the case with the guy who defrauded the Securities Commissioner the $850,000. Okay, wow. So in this story, you will see that they stole some checks, $1.2 million, and then they bought this BMW. So they couldn't explain where they got the money from to buy this BMW, you know, because his law firm, he wasn't really making any money. And this guy here has an air freshener company. So whilst Jeremy was outside cleaning the cars, this guy used to access all the financial institutions. I don't know if you all ever gone in the bathroom and this little thing hanging over the door in the bathroom smell excellent. Mm-hmm. And then it's a little spray thing that is spray every couple of minutes. Mm-hmm. He is the owner of that company that used to go to all the financial institutions and bring that, what do you call it, spray, yeah. And so all that time, this is why I'm telling you all, the clear desk policy is important. Shred, do not throw things in your garbage, because people like Mr. Curry, who come in doing a service for the institution, could grab anything off your desk while he's there on the way to the bathroom, okay? Because he used to fly a private jet, and that is BMW. They purchased, and all sorts of other stuff they purchased. Okay, Travis, your hand is up.
Yeah, hi, I am was only going to give an example, you know, I'm like of a unexplained wealth case, because I think that one that we have going on now, I'm like, is the same case with the former minister Nisha Roll, I think her name is.
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah, because I think she got herself caught up because of the fact that she like went on on some she actually went and like bought a large amount of property in the Lake Cunningham gated area. Mm-hmm. She's actually building a, or she was I guess like building a large home there. So I think that the questions came up with how she could buy the property and also build, because that the land in those areas would be in the high 6 figures.
Correct. Very good. So let's see what information, do we have enough information? Because I know her case was just in the investigative stages. So I don't think she has been officially charged. So
Right.
let's see, it says no police probe. This may not be the latest. So you'd have to Google to see. We want actual cases now. Is right now is just alleged. I don't think she's been to court, nor has she been charged. Now she's been questioned, right? But you want a case where you can actually see that they were charged and you know, they out on bail. Okay, so make sure that's a good example, but you may not find information. I don't think she's to the charging you know, point as yet.
Right.
Right, yeah. So with Elma and her son, like I said, always remember, like I told you, only poor people go to jail because after defrauding BPL, tell me how is it that both the malice, the fraud, the Securities Commission, the son defraud the BPL, they was out on bail, and guess what? They out on bail now again. Now tell me, Travis, if that was me or you, we would have been on bail twice.
Bail, I've been a loss in prison with all kinds of
Okay,
yes.
lost in prison, our family wouldn't even have been able to find us. Not only that, this happened, I think during the pandemic. Let me see, when was this? This year, this happened during the pandemic. And so they had expected the court case to come up, I say within 2 years. And what happened was that the court order for when they, what did they do? They seized the BMW, had expired. And so she fought and she said, the court order for my BMW is expired. I need my BMW. And guess what? She got it back. Wow. Then apparently this, I think this $465,000, they say they needed some money, and it ain't their fault that the court didn't bring them before, you know, the trial start yet. They need some money. So I think they don't get like $100,000 from this because again, the judiciary system is backed up.
Or
you
this
know?
a corrupt system, my goodness.
Okay, so this is why people, you know, I mean, you better have a network. You better know who to call. Because I can tell you, if this was us, we couldn't get that BMW. They would just extend the seizure order, right? And they definitely would say, "Oh no, this money is being held as evidence. We can't give you anything." But they was able to get some money. Go ahead, Sherry.
Good night again. What about the case with former executive chairman Adrian Gibson with water and sewage?
Again, nothing has gone to court. Now he has been arrested. He did spend 1 night in jail. So yes, it's that's a good example. Let's see if we could find. Let's see if we could find that.
Adrian Gibson on bail.
Oh, he is? Okay, so he's been charged.
On bail.
$1,000 bail. He's on bail.
But Miss Bullard, you know what the problem is with the Campbell case? They depend too heavily on the police. The DPP is not doing what they're supposed to do. They're supposed to be doing these orders. The police are the ones who's be doing these orders, and then they simply just go before the judge and get it sworn. That's wrong. They supposed to do the orders, and then they apparently no one is checking. There's no check and balance. So of course she was able to get her car back, because if you holding my stuff, you have like 2 years, you could hold my stuff. And then you have to, a decision has to be made by then. But the thing is, this is a criminal case. So how are you going to let the order expire?
Right. So if it expires, extend the date. And not only that, prove to me, if the court case didn't come up, you still can't prove where you get this money from. You was making a tourism salary, permanent secretaries, I think it's get paid $40,000 or $45,000 the most. Where she can afford $112,000 BMW from? How? On what salary?
Exactly. So, but
Okay,
DPP fell down in that one.
Okay, and like I said, they fell down a few times because how you on bail? How you committing a crime while on bail and getting bail again? Who does that work for?
Everybody, Miss Bullard.
Okay.
The murderers is be on bail like 3 times over.
Okay, until they get killed. Trinette, go ahead.
No, I was done. I was just mentioning that, you know.
I didn't finish my bar.
Oh, sorry, Sherry, go ahead.
With Adrian Gibson, I know he former executive chairman of Water and Sewage, and he obtained like over 1.25 million through a series of illicit checks and money laundering and awards of contractors company, which he didn't claim that he was a part of the companies. And then he used the money to purchase properties in Long Island, a fleet of cars, properties over here in the Western District. So he used the money and laundered it and purchased items just to clean up.
Allegedly now, the trial is.
Allegedly, right, say allegedly, and say,
Yes,
according to the Nassau
also
Guardian.
alleged that he gained
Allegedly.
bribery.
Yeah, so make sure you say according to the Nassau Guardian or according to the Tribune. Don't
Okay.
say Sherry say this. All right. All right. So that's how you answer the question if it asks you to explain cases on unexplained wealth, or if you decide to answer on the freezing order or the seizure order. See if you can find a case and prepare, or sometimes it just asks you to compare and contrast of the various cases. Okay, is that clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, good, very good. So we understand and explain well. Okay, let's see if we can keep going with an investigative order. Let's see, what is an investigative order? Okay. Okay, go ahead, continue on with the reading.
Investigative orders, section 83 to 84, not retroactive. Court can order financial institution to disclose customer information, including that of a company, to an authorized person. Customer information is related to whether a person has a bank account, the identifying information of the person and any joint account holder, and account numbers. Financial institutions include banks, insurance companies, investment firms, check cashing, or Western Union type businesses. The financial institution commits an offense if it fails to comply with the order, provides false information, or tells unauthorized persons about its existence.
Okay, okay, and I want you to pay attention to this first section. It's not retroactive. Now remember, all of our laws changed in 2018. So if we look back to Michelle Reckley, who was in charge of urban renewal in Freeport and rebuilding all those houses after the hurricane, she originally started off with 54 charges. Okay, now this says that she has 21. Okay, so did what 27 fall away, like the 29 cases charges fall off? And what happened? Yes, they did, because at the time she committed the crime, which was 216 and 217, these laws were not on the book. But by the time the case came up, they were, but they had to drop 29 charges because our laws were not updated. And of course, who should be in jail? The politicians. They made sure to say that this was not retroactive to 218. So only if you commit it after 218, they'll investigate it. Okay, so all those outstanding cases at the FIU, they might as well throw them in the garbage because some of the laws are not retroactive. Okay, let's go down to what we will see in our financial institutions. Go ahead, disclosure order. You want somebody else read, Renee?
I can read it.
Okay, go ahead, Deshay.
This is an order that allows the authorized person to give notice to anyone to answer questions, provide information, or produce documents at specified time and place. A disclosure order cannot compel a person to disclose something subject to legal privilege. A person
we all know what legal privilege is, correct?
No.
So the legal privilege is a discussion that you could have with your lawyer and it can't come up in court. So normally the lawyer will come to you and say, just tell me the truth so I could know how to win this case. Did you kill this person? and you say under legal privilege, yes, I killed the person, but you cannot compel the lawyer to admit that your client admitted that they did the murder. Okay, so that's legal privilege. Go ahead.
A person commits an offense if he fails to comply with the order, provides false information, or tells an authorized person about its existence. Hold on.
Ms. Bullock,
Yes, go ahead.
is there any exception to legal privilege?
Not that I'm aware of. I think whoever put that in there need to go to jail. That's what's supposed to happen. What this person can
That could
admit.
save me or you one day though.
Yeah,
would
but
you
you
do it?
admit, no, you admit, that means you're making the lawyer a liar, and a lot of lawyers, I don't know if how they could go to heaven, okay? But that's Ms. Bullett's personal thing. That's why I would never be a lawyer. Because I am fighting because, you know, and winning for you on a technicality, and all these murders are already happening. And I know you done killing, to put you back on the streets, you just as bad as the murderer. Right? Okay. Production order, this is the last one.
Production order. Application supported by affidavit ex parte before a magistrate's court. Court orders a person who has possession or control of a document showing location of relevant property to disclose it. If document is on computer, it must be converted to printed form. The authorized person can copy, inspect, or retain documents for a reasonable period. Restrictions. No right of entry to premises and not required to produce legally privileged items. For production of information restricted by the Banks and Trust Companies Regulation Act and the Central Bank Act, an application must be made to a Supreme Court judge.
Okay, and what they did with that is, they said that the Bankers Act and the Central Bank Act does not trump the FTRA. So it automatically gives the director of the FIU like to act in that capacity. So they don't like go to the Supreme Court and ask for this. I think they automatically like delegate an authority to them. I'm not certain, but that's what I was told. Okay, so are we clear? And ex parte means motions, hearings, or temporary orders. Okay, again, another Latin word that they put in the law to confuse you. Any lawyers in the house? Any lawyers? No? Okay. Trinette, you still have your hand raised?
Aspiring.
Okay, all right. So you would know what all these stuff mean. And Ms. Bullet don't know. So
Ex parte is, that's a part of the summons. You do the summons, you like.
Right. So
if
it's
you get like an order or an extension or
right.
something. Someone.
Yeah, so motion hearings or temporary orders.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They just normally use Latin words and phrases instead of saying a whole sentence. They will just use ex parte. For example, you would have mentioned the alia. So that's just like a Latin phrase.
Right. Let's put it in layman's terms. Anything normal, I need to understand, plain and simple as possible so I can understand. Okay, so guys, they are the orders, like I said, very people, at first didn't like this question, and then I saw that a lot of persons answered it and they normally got full points. The comparison or the actual cases, and so, you know, people were very successful in, you know, answering those questions. Okay, any questions? Was that clear or you're confused? Deshay? Knowles?
Yes, ma'am.
You're good? Knowles? Who else? Let me see who will talk to me today. Taylor Pratt? You only need 5% for participation aid. This is the last class, and the next week is just.
I could miss it.
Okay. All right. Lachey, you have enough points, say Lachey.
I'm actually on the road, but my kitchen at the end of the class.
Okay, well, when you reach your bed, talk to Ms. Bullet, make sure you get all your points. What about you, Travis? Travis, you have all your points?
Yes.
Oh, okay, good.
Yep, I do.
I'm making sure. Okay, guys, so that's chapter 7. And we'll go on to our last and final chapter. Yay! Okay, and it talks about compliance systems. And it talks about the different roles of compliance, the role of the board, the role of the compliance department, the role of the AML team. And so the first question people ask are, Ms. Bullitt, what's the difference between compliance and the AML team? Okay, so we will get to that, and I'll ensure that I answer that question. Very, very popular question on the final exam that 90% of the person get wrong. A multiple choice question is, who does the ultimate responsibility for compliance rest with? Okay, and because it says compliance, everybody says the compliance officer. Wrong. The ultimate responsibility rests with the board of directors. Okay, and y'all may say, Ms. Bullitt, but the board is only coming every 3 months. Correct. But what they do is they hire senior management, and senior management, they then delegate their authority to senior management, to the head of finance, to the head of HR, to the CEO, to the head of compliance, to the head of credit. And each of them will write a report and then present it to the board when they come in for those meetings every quarter. Okay, so that's how it works. And so even though they delegate their authority, they are still responsible. Okay, so the board. In the compliance department, very complex, right? A very big problem in the industry is they expect compliance to wear too many hats. Okay, and so you have most compliance departments as a one-man band and an assistant. Okay, and that should never be. If you work in a very small institution where you have less than 100 customers, then it's fine. But if you work in an organization, these Fortune 500 companies, Scotiabank, Citibank, Royal Bank, you should have an entire department because each of them have 8,000 to 10,000 customers. Okay, and so therefore, so that the person is not overwhelmed, you want to ensure that you have adequate coverage. Now, a big problem is that compliance makes no money for the business. So when the budget comes out, all the money is budgeted to sales, right? Because they bring in the most revenue. The only thing that compliance does is save the business from paying fines, right? But of course, they need more salespeople and they need less of us. But it's a big risk if the compliance department is not fully staffed, okay? Because the compliance department is supposed to keep the entire business compliant, okay? And so in order to do that, you should split the work, because just like the account officers are required to know their customer, the compliance department has to then know the customers, okay? And so what you should do is split the department up into anti-money laundering, compliance, and then risk. Some companies want you to do corporate governance, and if you have a legal background, they want you to do legal as well. Too much, okay? And one time we were auditing one of the very big banks, we were auditing the compliance department. We went in and they said, go to Nathan to get the AML work. Go to Nathan to get the corporate service work. Go to Nathan to get the legal work. So we said, wait a minute. Nathan wasn't in that opening meeting. Is Nathan the coordinator for this audit? And they said, no, Nathan does corporate legal compliance and AML. I say, really? Excuse us. So we had a meeting and we stopped that audit. And we contacted the regulator and we explained this, and the regulator demanded them to hire 3 extra persons that assist Nathan. Okay, because they said there was no way for him to keep proper oversight if he was so overwhelmed with work. Okay, and so what we suggest is that you split it into AML, which is account opening, the triggers, transfer approvals, filing SDRs. Then we say compliance deals with surveys, the regulators, reviewing policy and procedure, and liaising with anybody on behalf of the compliance department. And then of course, risk does the risk assessments, and anything else risk related. Because of course we know risk assessment is only as good as the day it was created. Because Ms. Bullock could go commit a crime right now. I was low risk yesterday, I'd be high risk tomorrow, okay? But for administrative purposes, we put in the, high, medium, and low, 1 year, 2 year, 3 years, okay? So you want to ensure that the department is adequately staffed, and then it's organized. And the only way you can do this is if you have metrics, okay? So you have to ask, are your clients primarily, when you go to these interviews, are your clients primarily high, medium, or low? Do you have a risk department, or does compliance deal with risk? Because when the risk assessment became mandatory in 2018, many organizations didn't have a risk department. So where did it fall? On compliance. When FACA and CRS came along, the Bahamas wasn't used to taxes. Where did it fall? On compliance. Okay, and compliance should not be operational. There should never be contact with the compliance department and a customer. Okay, and staff members should not be using the terminology compliance saying put your wire through, compliance investigating, compliance want to copy a passport. You have to find out what terminology your institution uses and say that, but it should not be compliance, compliance, compliance. That's a form of tipping off. Okay, we have your money on hold. We need your passport. We need, the Royal Bank of Canada requires you to update. Bahamas law requires an update, but not compliance. So we have to move away from saying the compliance. Okay, so the money laundering reporting officer, that's a regulated function. That role is attached to the most senior person in the department, because only one person has to be regulated. Okay, what this being regulated means, it means that you can send an ad in the paper, you can say that I want a compliance officer. You could select that person, but then that person has to be vetted by the regulator, Central Bank Securities Commission, and approved. Once that person is approved, then you register them with the FRB. And again, you cannot get a license as a financial services business without a MLRO on staff. Okay, and that MLRO, through that investigative period, they receive SDRs, they evaluate them, they determine whether it should be filed. They act as the main point of contact for law enforcement, and they act without reference and influence from management. Okay, so in order for you to act with reference or influence, you have to report to the board. Okay, in my last position, the CEO was adamant that I report to him for administrative duties. So that he was like, put a dotted line to me. So if Ms. Bullock wants to go on vacation or if she's out sick, she'll call me. And so we sent that on to the Securities Commission and the Central Bank. We had to send an organizational chart. And it came back and say that I was denied as the MLRO. And so I was like, I was denied? What my neighbors say, And when we opened the package, they said, this position cannot be approved until the dotted line to the CEO is removed. So the CEO was adamant, request an audience with the regulator. I'd like to speak to the Central Bank and I'd like to speak to the Securities Commission. And so again, they said, for what reason would Ms. Bullock need to have a dotted line to you? So he said, if she is sick, who should she call? They said HR. They said, if she needs to go on vacation, what should she do? They said the board meeting before the vacation is scheduled, she should send an email or
Hello?
to the board that she would like to take a
Miss
vacation. on
Bullet, you had
vacation.
freeze, you had
Yes?
freeze. Miss Bullet, you had
Somebody has
freeze.
a question?
You had freeze.
Sorry, Nathan, I didn't hear you.
You froze for a minute. I thought it said
Oh.
a bit, so,
Okay, you hear me now? Everything good?
yes, ma'am.
Yeah, so CEOs want to influence you because when it's bonus time, you know, they want you to approve these accounts. And so they, you know, the regulators try their best to ensure that the CEO or nobody in the institution influences your decision. Like the other day, I wrote up an STR, and so my CEO said, "Oh, I know that guy. That's fine. You don't have to report him." I said, "This man just get arrested for embezzlement in Panama, and I don't have to file an STR." "Oh no, I know him quite well." So I said, "Okay, so." Okay, so when you make your report, you don't answer to anybody, and not every report that you make, you have to tell them that you made this report, and especially if they are against it, you just do your work privately, and you don't have to ask permission. And when you go to the board, you'll say, "I filed 5 STRs this month," and the board may question you on it, but the CEO has no right to tell you who you should, you know, report to the FIU or not. So it's very important that you're not intimidated and you're not influenced, okay? In the real world, you are intimidated and influenced, but at least the regulators are there to protect you and making sure that, you know, on paper, you don't report to anybody in the institution. And so these CEOs are getting very creative, because I have a friend now dealing with somebody who is saying that the law states that the MLRO must be independent. So as compliance officer, they will report to the CEO and they will report to the board as MLRO. So the regulator has come back and said, "Is this the same person in one position?" And the institution said yes. And so they say, "Listen, we are going to find the CEO if we have to talk to them one more time." And that's where the point of regulators are, okay? And so as the MLRO, or compliance officer, because sometimes you have to blow the whistle. When they are doing your investigation, they do ask you for a private cell phone number and a private email address outside of the organization that they could, in private, with anything being tracked, communicate with you. Okay, so the FIU will ask you for that, as well as the regulator, in case you have a FTX situation where you blow the whistle. Okay. Then it goes on to talk about the role of internal audit. The role of internal audit is primarily to prevent, detect, or investigate money laundering, financial crime. It is an independent function, and it helps an organization by bringing a systematic approach to evaluate and improve the effectiveness of risk management, control, and governance. And in your institutions, you should have rolled out the 3 lines of defense. And so the first line of defense against risk is the front line and the managers. The second line of defense is compliance. And the third line of defense is audit. Do we see those? Who's in a branch or in a bank?
I am.
Elkin, so are you familiar with those 3 lines of defense?
Me.
Okay, good. So you all know what Ms. Bullet talking about. Okay, good. And so the book goes on to talk about who the regulators are. And of course, by now you should know the regulator. You should be following your regulator. You should be getting updates. You should all have a copy of your AML policy and looking at what your regulator says to make sure there are no gaps and you are doing what you ought to do and what is right. Okay, so you don't end up like FTX. Very real. Okay, so the central bank regulates the banks, the money services businesses, and the credit unions. The Securities Commission regulates the broker dealers in the securities industry. The Insurance Commission does all the insurance companies. The Gaming Board does, I think there are 3 casinos, 2 in Nassau, 1 in Freeport, and all the web shops. And most recently, the Compliance Commission regulates the law firms, the accounting firms, and the real estate companies and the little jewelry stores that have a corporate service providers on. Okay, guys, that's it. Questions, concerns? We did it. Any questions on chapter 8?
Yay.
Ms. Bullard, I can be honest with you. This class feel like another risk assessment again.
I told you it's very comprehensive, but it's achievable.
Yes,
Very
ma'am.
comprehensive, but definitely you could do it. You could do it. And if you, this intro, this beneficial to everybody. So the annual training for the year, you could tell your institution, see, done it. I don't need to go to another one. Right? But now if compliance is your field, or if you work in compliance, I will see all of you in intro. I mean in intermediate, and then some of you in ICA.
Intermediate is the one with the Saturday class that lasts for 3 hours.
Yeah,
Well, it's
that's
not,
10 weeks.
it don't have to be on Saturday because my intermediate class now is on Mondays and we have one on Thursday. All the classes, intro, intermediate, and ICA are 3 hours.
Okay.
So I think if it starts on the 25th, what day is the 25th? Let's see. Oh, yeah, that
Saturday,
is a Saturday.
Saturday.
Yeah, that's a Saturday.
So intermediate only offered once a year?
No,
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 the stage 3 is
no.
offered once a year, January, every
Right.
January, for 15 months.
When is the next intermediate course?
After February, it'll probably be at the sometime in April.
Okay, I think I'm gonna register for that one.
Okay, that's
'Cause
fine.
I-
If you need a break.
Yeah, I in UB too, so
Okay, yeah, take it easy. Yeah, and intermediate is 10 weeks. Yeah, it isn't 5 weeks like this. It's 10 weeks. Much more in-depth information.
Yeah, that was my question. Like, I wanted to find out if we had missed February, if we would have had another opportunity. April sounds amazing. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yes. So April, May, yeah, should be another session.
Miss Bullard,
Yes.
after this class, can I speak with you privately, please?
Sure. Just everybody will make sure everybody leaves and then you just stay on.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, Ms. Bullet, I actually wanted to speak with you as well afterwards.
No, you could go before me. At least I know, but this anyway, I know how we can do this.
I just wanted to find out Balak's opinion on something, so I mean, I don't mind going ahead of you.
I wanted to ask you something completely. It's involving this course, but not anyway. I just would speak to her after class.
Afterwards. Okay.
Yeah.
You let Elkin go first, then we leave you on. Okay. Any questions? Claire's mud?
Claire's mud.
Okay.
So Ms. Bullet, my question is, right, where should we now, as it relates to this essay, the essays, the 7 elected essays, which chapters now should we review when now addressing these essays?
With Elkin, it's 10 choices. So of course, you know, there's going to be a question out of each chapter, right? So think about what chapter stuck with you and always go with the easiest one first to get it out of the way. So definitely, if you selected whatever question you selected for homework, you've already done that research. That's one question you answer. So if you do placement, you should have done some stuff on money laundering. Definitely answer one question on money laundering. If you do terrorism, save that question, because terrorism, of course, can be on the exam like that. So like I said, the key is to be organized, and then you look at the topics, of course, PEPs, statutory requirements, everything but on the review sheet. You look at the topics and see which ones you have down pat, and you answer the easiest ones first.
Solid.
It's 1,200 words for the essays as well.
No, just a page and a half the most. So you handwriting this.
Okay.
You handwriting this. Yeah,
Oh,
and This is why next week we only want 10 points that we can develop. We don't want no essays. We don't want no spreadsheets. Don't come with no PowerPoint, none of that. Get to the point, because Ms. Bullock is saying no points, no points. So you'll know if you put that in the essay, if you get points or not. Yeah.
Where are we taking this exam, Ms. Bullitt?
At the institute where you collected your book,
Okay.
Ms. Dean will be expecting you, and I'll give you all the details next week. So on the 21st at 6 p.m. So
Awesome.
like I say, please, if you have not scheduled any time off, at least get off at 12 o'clock.
Good
Trust
stuff.
me, you don't want to be overwhelmed and rushed.
Where's your parking though?
The parking is across the road, and on Victoria Avenue, that open parking lot on the end of Victoria Avenue across from the hospital. That's
That would-
the parking.
Oh, okay.
The security will let you park once you let the security know that you come to BIFS.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Good night, everybody.
All right, so if there are no further questions or concerns, have a wonderful week. And we'll see you. Come prepared with good information to prove to Ms. Bullard you have retained this information and you comprehend. So next week, have a great week.
Good night.
All right, good
Okay,
night.
good night.
Good night.
Good night.
All right, good night.
Okay, okay, there we go. Okay, so Elkin, go ahead.
So question, is the thing I'm still recording?
Let me see. Are you sure you want to stop recording?